20 years ago this week, the unspeakable happened in downtown Oklahoma City. The Alfred P. Murrah Federal Building was bombed by a domestic terrorist. That bombing resulted in the deaths of 168 people who were our neighbors, friends, and co-workers. The deaths also included 19 children, and there were numerous buildings damaged in the downtown area. Not only did we see physical damage and experience the horror of those deaths, we also had a lot of pain as a city, state, and nation that one of our own would do something so horrible to us. Despite the horrible events of that day and the days, weeks, and months following, Oklahoma has emerged as a state that represents resilience, healing, and coming together to help each other, which is now known as the Oklahoma Standard. Not only did we learn a lot about resilience and healing, I learned a lot about leadership in tough times. I worked near the building. Fortunately, none of my employees were injured. We did have some damage to the building and had to evacuate. But the days following that event, as we tried to regroup, tried to work, I noticed some leadership lessons that I think are important for every leader when faced with having employees who are experiencing some tough times. The first thing I learned is that productivity and morale will decline. Obviously, after the bombing, our employees were very distracted. Some of them had friends in the building. There were many of them who often went into the building to either visit friends or use some of the services of the agencies who were located in the building. So that's the first thing I learned. It's kind of to give employees a break. Obviously, it's a temporary issue, and as healing happens, that productivity and morale will return. The other thing I learned is that it is important to provide resources to help employees cope with such a disaster, but also to heal from it. We were fortunate as an organization to have a contract with a local employee assistance program, also known as an EAP, and the week following the bombing, we were able to bring counselors in who could meet with the employees as a group to kind of begin processing what had happened, but also to be available to those individuals who needed some special counseling and individual attention. The other thing I learned as a leader is that you don't have a policy for everything. I had an employee who was a stellar performer, had perfect attendance. He requested time off to attend 19 funerals. I was taken aback by just the sheer volume of funerals that he needed to attend, but his wife worked in the building. She was injured in the blast, and many of her coworkers and friends had died because of the bombing. In addition, the employee and his wife had a lot of friends elsewhere in the building. At first, as the management team considered his request, our first thought, believe it or not, was, we don't have a policy for this. We can't allow him to have that time off. My thought was quite different. To me, a leader needs to do the right thing, and sometimes there isn't a policy for the right thing. As a result, we granted him the time off with pay so that he could grieve with his wife about the loss of their friends and co-workers. The other thing that I've learned with the bombing is that a leader's role in that kind of situation, which hopefully as leaders we will never face again. But nonetheless, I learned that a leader is always responsible for guiding employees, but in this case, we become responsible for guiding and healing employees from such a disaster. So I think those are great lessons to learn that we can apply to any situation when we have an employee or a group of employees going through tough times. In the next edition of Tuesday Tip, I'll talk about paid time off policies for organizations.